Thanks for joining us for another edition of DATELINE360. I am Omotola Omojola. Today we shall examine an issue important to everyone because as long as there is life, at some point everyone will retire. As it is said, what has a beginning has an end. Pension. Yes, that is the crux of our discuss today. Though the pension administration process in Nigeria has had and is still experiencing challenges, hope, however, is in the horizon, with steps taken by the Tinubu-led administration to make living comfortable for those who retire in Nigeria going forward. On this edition, we inquire to understand the process of pension administration in the country, what is working, where there is need for adjustment, and steps to be taken to make life worth living for those who put their youthful age to good service of the country and its people. This is for everyone, from government to state and private sector workers. For the purpose of understanding the essence of pensions, Chukwunonso Nwabueze brings us this historical background to global pension trends.
It is natural that old age comes with constrained ability to work and earn a living. So people inevitably depend on one form of support or another to survive that stage of life. This is why the concept of pension after retirement at prescribed age becomes imperative.
Augustus Caesar, the Roman emperor, was the first to establish what could be called a proper pension scheme in 13 BC, when he commenced paying retired soldiers a lump sum that was 13 times their annual salaries after they must have served for a minimum of 16 years in the military reserves. Germany introduced the first universal pension program for employees when the Old Age and Disability Insurance Bill was enacted in 1889 under its social legislative policy. Nigeria joined the pension scheme when the British colonial administration via circular number 19 of 24th March 1945, which started the process of formalizing the Old Age Protection Scheme for the native administrative staff. The scheme was given a legal backing with the Pension Ordinance of 1951, which was applied retroactively from January 1, 1946. The Pension Ordinance established the formal processes of pension administration in Nigeria, with the private sector not part of it. In 1961, a year after Nigeria attained independence, the Federal Parliament enacted the National Provident Fund Act, in keeping with Convention number 102 of the International Labour Organization on Social Protection, and a year later, the Act was amended to cover only employees in the private sector who were outside the purview of the existing pension scheme. The MPF was a compulsory savings scheme, as employees and employers each contributed 3 pence on monthly basis for every 4 shillings of wages. The Act provided for one-off lump sum benefits for retirees as retirement was pegged at 55 years. Contributors could withdraw their savings if they became unemployed for 2 straight years. However, due to MPF shortcomings, policymakers continued to make improvements through legislative and administrative measures. In 1977, the local government pension scheme was established by the then federal military government. In 1979, the same administration enacted the Basic Pension Decree 102 and Armed Forces Pension Number 103, retroactively effective from April 1974, to reflect the changes that had taken place in pension administration over time. The decree still did not convincingly address the challenges associated with pension administration, as the public service scheme was mostly unfunded and non-contributory, as it relied solely on budgetary provisions and releases. Entitlements were based on the pension formula on employees' pensionable years and the incomes they earned while in service. These pension benefits had to be paid from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. The quest for addressing the challenges eventually led to the 2004 Contributory Pension Scheme, which was meant to address the public pension crisis, where retirees spent years before getting their benefits. The Act, which was repealed 10 years after in 2014, came up with new provisions and modifications, but largely aimed at ensuring that contributors receive their retirement benefits as and when due.
But what you still find out presently is that you find some retirees waiting for 1-2 years before they're able to access both the lump sum and their pension.
The pivotal provisions of the Act include compulsory coverage for all employees in the public service, monthly contribution of 10% for employers and 8% for employees, retirement savings account by employee, while PENCOM serves as a regulator and supervisor of the pension fund administrators and other institutions involved in pension matters. The Pension Transitional Arrangements Directorate, PTAD, is still operating under the Defined Benefit Scheme with the supervision of PENCOM. 20 years since the latest pension regime, how has the scheme been able to address the challenges hitherto associated with pension administration in Nigeria?
Most of the states are yet to join, and this shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. We are talking about the interests of employees. Employees happen to be the most important elements for factor in any productive sector.
You know, when some of us or some of them started some 35 years ago, we all know the value of the naira to dollar. Now you are retiring so that what you receive now, if converted to dollars, becomes quite paltry.
Thanks for that insightful knowledge shared, Chukunonso. So what is the situation with pensioners in Nigeria? Joseph Osen reports that while reacting to the impact of current pension reforms in Nigeria, pensioners appeal for acceleration of efforts towards accessing the pension fund approved by of their retired benefits.
Give us back our money, will not give us back our money.
A retiree raging at the gate of the National Pension Commission. He is here with others under the contributory pension scheme, demanding payment of their retirement benefits.
They paid us May, June, July. Some were paid August, some were not paid. Last year, and that is where we are.
Pensioners' protest is resurfacing, irrespective of public or private sector and pension scheme.
This morning,
November last year, military pensioners staged a protest at the Ministry of Finance demanding for their retirement benefits. And in same November, electricity workers' unions blocked the entrance of the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, pressurizing the management to pay accrued rights of retirees of the company who were exhausted, complaining.
many staff have retired, they cannot access their RSA account.
When the contributory pension scheme was introduced by the Pension Reform Act of 2004, Nigerian workers were hopeful that they will not go through the dark days under the old pension system of defined benefit scheme, where retirees waited decades to access their benefits due to lack of funds. But this has not been the case 20 years after the reform.
So the idea of CPS was mooted, whereby government as employer contributes and the employee, being workers, also contributes. So it was expected that at retirement there will be availability of money because it is no longer subject to annual budget allocations.
You won't believe it that if not because of this new minimum wage, some pensioners, they were earning less than 4,000 before they introduced this new minimum pension as at now. But notwithstanding, you know, some state government, they are still complaining that they could not pay the money.
Inability of some employers to remit their portion under the contributory pension scheme is blamed for the delay in payment.
2007 was when retirees started to emerge under the CPS. Between that 2007 and 2014, within 2 months, 3 months, you see people getting their money after retirement. But between 2014 and now, government started reneging in the remittance of accrued right, monthly remittance of accrued right.
The delay in release of those funds by the federal government that has accounted, for some of these isolated incidences.
For the pensioners under the Pension Traditional Agreement Directorate, PTAD, their plight is gradually easing out following reforms that have been facilitating regular payment of their benefits.
Then we were complaining, filling complaints forms. Last month, your name is in the payroll. This month, your name is omitted deliberately. With this I am alive system, every pensioner can now sit at the comfort of his house, have your publications, and then the PITAD will document it immediately.
Recommendations made by a committee set up by the President Bola Tinubu's led administration culminated to the approval of 758 billion pension bond to settle accrued benefits of retirees.
By the time the 758 billion naira bond is raised, the proceeds are going to be used in terms of settling all those outstanding pension liabilities and thereby restoring the contributory pension scheme back to its original intent.
Appreciative of government efforts, but those on the contributory pension scheme want the employers to also sustain payment of gratuity.
The Pension Reform Act also insists that a pensioner under CPS must receive at least 50% of his last salary while in service. So in order for you to get something close to 50%, none of us is collecting 50%, very few of us now, except those from the parastatals. Those of us from the core ministries, hardly you find anybody who is receiving up to 50% of his last salary. So what the regulator, PENCON, is doing is to ensure that at least you take home some amount of money called lump sum, and that is because government has also tactically removed what is called gratuity. Ordinarily, gratuity is 300% of your annual salary, which is much more than the so-called lump sum.
For many pensioners, living conditions have not been easy without their retirement benefits. They hope that the release of the 758 billion naira approved by the federal government to take care of their accrued rights is accelerated, while those at the state level also hope that their governors follow suit to make life better for them. I'm Joseph Uten reporting for Deadline 360.
From Abuja, we move to Kaduna, where Haruna Mohammed has also been interacting with pensioners who hope that government at both the state and federal level will intervene in the matter between them and their pension administrators.
Having worked for 35 years or attained the age of 60, you are expected to retire. But the life after retirement is another ball game entirely. And this is the major distribution point of newspapers in Kaduna, and the retirees converge here to update themselves on what is happening around the world.
Suleiman Kaura, Idowu Esin, and Zafanaya D. Hans are retired decades ago.
Why should somebody be retired and he will not get his benefits immediately, despite assurance by government officials? So it's very unfortunate. That is why anybody who is now in service will try to get some money, legally or illegally. And that is not the best for us.
I retired in 1998 by the Hamid-led administration as at that time. And during that time, my benefits were computed. I was paid my entitlement without any stress. Unlike now, that pensioners will have to wait for years. I understand from the discussions we had with some people here that since 2015, they retired, they have not been paid their entitlement.
You know, when you have children, and then something that you are taking is not up to take care of most of the children that you have, you know, so there's a problem.
Reduced monthly pension payout, high inflation, deteriorating health condition, among others, are some of the plights of the retirees under the contributory pension scheme. Although they acknowledge the federal and current administration in Kaduna for some of its policies towards ensuring the well-being of the retirees, they, however, advocate for more.
I must commend President Bola Tinubu for recently approving over 758 billion naira to pay for all these lingering arrears. I only hope that he will monitor so that those who are supposed to act according to his directive, do the right thing.
Experts enumerate the way forward to a viable and sustainable pension system that penalizes erring PFAs and laws to strengthen the system.
Government to come up at all levels, whether local government, state, federal, companies, organization, business, non-business, come up with health care scheme for pensioners. Something that will take good care of their health. And then some other social programs that can engage them. Because remember the effect of idleness. You retire, you are weak, and many physical work you cannot do. But at least there are some other things that a pensioner can do.
As elder statesmen and women, prayer on their lips is for government to have a review of the pension scheme and payment to reflect current realities. For Dateline 360, I am Haruna Mohammed.
Now, proper administration of the pension scheme that meets the yearnings of civil servants has over time been the major concern of stakeholders in Nigeria. Ngozi Imokwede examines how this works in Delta State.
In Delta State, pensioners share different experiences on how the implementation of the conventional pension scheme has impacted their lives.
The state is doing well in the sense that they are not owing pensions, particularly with those of us who are in the old pension scheme. Our stipends come at the end of the month. The only challenge may be that the stipend is not taking anybody anywhere in terms of spending, in terms of buying. And so you find that pensioners, particularly in the old pension, keep dying in silence.
You know, at this age, we buy a lot of drugs. What we get is not enough, if not for maybe for the God's mercy and maybe some of us who have children to take care of them. If not, it's not easy. You won't believe.
Belong to the old, what I call the conventional pension scheme. You retire, government will pay you all through. We don't depend on any pension administration. An arm of the federal government takes care of everything about us. That is it. And from 2011 to date, to God be the glory, they've been doing marvelously well.
However, some beneficiaries also share their reservations on the implementation of the pension scheme by the pension funds administrators.
The delay in payment is what, in fact, it's more than a scourging sum.
Imagine a man or woman who has served his or her country for 35 years or thereabout, now aging. What is he or she going to do? He's dependent now, we can't help. A few years again, it is a way out of this earth. It's very painful.
Authorities in Delta State face the challenge of PFAs and retirees not applying due diligence in embarking on the pension scheme verification processes.
Even when the government releases money to a PFA today, the PFA will send it to the custodian. Custodian and mega banks were housing these funds for these PFAs. Then they will send it to National Pension Commission. The scheme is regulated by National Pension Commission. They will seek approval from the commission, grant approval to them, and before the PFA will release money to the retirees. In every new scheme, there must be hiccups. So time is coming, these hiccups will be no more. I can tell you that for those who joined the service in 2008 in Delta State, from 2007 to 2008, they don't have any problem.
Stakeholders are of the opinion that to strengthen the system, erring PFA licenses should be withdrawn, and government at all levels should ensure that timely implementation of all increments arising from new minimum wage. For Dateline 360, Ngozi Imokwede.
In our next piece, Nwabufo Nwoye examines issues of access in the contributory pension scheme, particularly as it pertains to voluntary retirement.
Expert says the conditions for a voluntary retiree to access contributory pension fund are governed by the Pension Reform Act of 2014. The Act indicates attainment of 50 years of age, notification of the employer and pension fund administrator. Other conditions include to access fund through a program withdrawal, annuity or lump sum payment of up to 25% retirement savings account balance. The employee on the contributory pension scheme can also access fund before retirement on the grounds of payment of equity contributions for residential mortgage, children's education, or healthcare conditions.
It takes a longer time for you to access your fund. If I retire voluntarily, there's a reason why I retire voluntarily, and the reason why I want to get my fund. And just keeping on delay for a longer time is not good. The PFA should get it right. The pension consultant should get it right. Then the National Pension Commission should also get it right. So there'll be an easy flow. They know everybody have the same data. We want the system to be revolutionized.
I, as a retiree, I enjoy the new system of income, which I normally have to do with my pension managers. Before the end of the month, I do see my money. So, unlike in the old, but the difference is that this pension, the new pension system, do not accommodate the increment of salaries for the pensioners.
However, people are of the opinion that workers in the informal sector should be adequately captured in the pension program.
From the government side and the private sector side is that they should be able to capture the non-formal sector by using their name, number to register them and make them contribute something to them. But the major problem that we have is the area of sensitization and enlightenment and education. So if this is properly done and the campaign is being taken to the market space, to the non-formal sector space, the welders are able to be captured, and also it will help the government to plan for everyone and also ensure that the benefit of pension goes across everyone.
The main objective of Contributory Pension Scheme, CPS, is to ensure that every person that worked in either the public or private sector in Nigeria, including self-employed persons, receives his or her retirement benefits as and when due. In Lagos, Wabu Fonwoye reporting for Dateline 360.
Stakeholders in pension administration say the Pension Reform Act 2004 is the best thing to happen to life after active service. While acknowledging shortfalls in implementation, they commend the recent 758 billion naira intervention by the federal government. Benny Adams takes it up from here.
Tani Mustafa, a retiree and a pension administrator, he says the contributory pension scheme is the best thing to happen to retirees in Nigeria.
You see, presently, some people may not look at it as something that saved them, but I can assure you, it's a paradigm shift for Nigeria. If we have continued with the old scheme, I don't know where we will be today.
Why did
At
you
the
say so?
time that this pension reform was done, Nigerian government is owing almost 2 trillion to Nigerian pensioners. The story is very bad. They never look at pension. Pension is an afterthought. But the pension reform now said, look, we must set aside money for pensioners. We must set aside money for people that come into the service today. Level 8, level 9, you should start putting money away for them so that whenever they retire, there will be money for them. And that is what this contributory pension did for Nigerians.
Okay, as it is being operated today, some say there is issue of they are not witnessing increments.
Yes.
Yes, civil servants are receiving increment,
Yes.
there is minimum wage.
Yes.
But for the contributory pension,
Yes.
that increment is not there.
Yes.
Another thing again people are saying is how much money you get at the point of retirement. And it is expected that at about 70 plus, the system expects that you are weak or you are almost dead.
Yes.
The pension should
Yes.
stop.
Yes.
And because of all of these agitations, it's
Yes.
not going down well with a lot of civil servants who have retired. And you hear now before retirement, because of the lack of increment, you hear the police are saying, we want to be out of CPS. What's your take on all of this?
It is true. increments that were approved for the defined benefits section of the pension scheme since 2007 to date was not applied to pensioners under the contributory pension.
Anybody under CPS is not expected to be demanding for increment because definitely his account balance is increasing. What he can do is to approach the PFA and say, since I have much money in my account, can you rework how much you are paying me?
But this government that has resolve, decided to pay everything by approving the bond of 758 billion. They have taken care of all the pension increases of 2007, 2013, 2020, 2019, and also 2024. All those increases have been taken care of. Pensioners under the contributory pension will now see money flowing into their retirement savings account. Those retirees that are taking their pension, they will see their pension enhanced.
This landmark bond resolves all accumulated pension liabilities. 253 billion naira of these will be dedicated towards clearing all accumulated accrued rights, and 388 billion out of the bond that will be issued for 758 billion will be dedicated towards clearing liabilities of pension increases dating back 2007 to date. These pension increases have affected over 250,000 retirees. You would agree with me that this reflects the administration's commitment to ensuring pensions remains fair and responsive to economic realities. For the first time, the federal government is contributing 107 billion towards pension protection fund to support low-income earners. As you know, we have some of the retirees of the federal government, treasury-funded MDAs, and also even private employees as well, or retirees as well, who are receiving pensions that are low. So this pension protection fund is expected to augment their pensions to ensure that they receive a living wage.
In the end, this pension scheme is sustainable. It feeds itself.
From the submissions of Alhaji Isani Mustafa here, pensioners under the contributory pension scheme have nothing to worry about. More so that the federal government has approved more than 700 billion naira in bonds to ensure that not just arrears are settled, but increment is also being observed or witnessed in payments going forward. For Deadline 360, I am Benny Adams.
Now we hope all your questions have been answered. A big thanks to all our correspondents and the crew members and you, the viewer. I am Omotola Omojola. God bless Nigeria.